welcome to the Gaia update for the new moon in Virgo that happens on Friday, August 30th, 2019. I'm Adrienne Elise. So this new moon in Virgo is very interesting. We're moving in to a lot of earth energy. It's been quite a shift as we come out of Leo season. So much fire. And now for this new moon, we'll have the sun and the moon. Mars and Venus have moved into Virgo. Mercury will move into Virgo on the day of this new moon. So lots and lots of Virgo energy. And so it's a time to ground out. Virgo's an earth sign, a feminine earth sign, and it's about coming home into our reality, grounding out, and assimilating what's been happening to us. And we're getting a lot of messages about this. This is kind of a time when we're trying to find balance from all of the activation. So it felt like in these last couple of months of astrology, last couple of years of astrology, that we have been going into some dark places and clearing out all kinds of, the karmic purge and all that. But really, the information that seems to be coming now is that this has actually been quite an activation. Now, when you spin a top, activation has an energy of like movement ratio, optimal spin ratio. And so think about like when you start spinning a top, and at first the momentum makes it wobble, right? And we've literally been pushed into a new area of our existence, a chapter, a new, perhaps it corresponds with our planet moving into a new area of the galaxy. We are getting just tons of downloads and upgrades, and it's right now we're being given an opportunity, and there's a lot of messages around stabilizing and balancing this shift and change, So once you get the top moving, then it's kind of wobbly and it's all over the place, right? And then it'll stabilize, and then it'll follow a path, right? So we've been literally trying to move timelines, and maybe the activation of this new momentum is making us feel a little wacky, and like, where's the ground? What am I doing? Where am I going? Where am I coming from? Who am I? And this has been what the astrology has been about for so long. It's like hard to even imagine something of a different energy. And now we're kind of like, okay, wait, hold on, maybe it's okay. Maybe I'm gonna be okay. And the Virgo energy is actually really helpful. Virgo wants to clean up, wants to get organized, wants to face the truth, wants to sort out the bullshit. And there's an energy of this threshold and the Virgin birthing us into the next place. And everything in the astrology is pointing towards this. And of course, Virgo is the time of the harvest, represented in the Northern Hemisphere, where we are sorting out what we want to keep and what we want to get rid of. And that very much fits, what's going on with us energetically after these deep, mysterious journeys into ancient lifetimes, past lives, into the depths of our psyche. And now we're kind of like, okay, the Leo shined the light on it, and now we're going to sort through it and just kind of, calm down and try to get this all handled, get a sense of what's going on, right? Because Virgo does want to make sense of things. That's ruled by ruled by Mercury. And so it has to do with the mind sorting out our reality, right? And it's kind of on the edge of like the journey through the zodiac and moving into the second part of the zodiac, and it's got this threshold energy of moving into the higher octaves. And that's literally absolute metaphor for what's happening in this massive shift energetically as we move into the Aquarian age in a bigger picture. So this Virgo energy is also really important because the 2012 astrology happened in Virgo and got a very big activation of this Virgo energy, and the Pluto-Uranus conjunction that happened in the 60s happened in Virgo. And so we are looking at this energy. So Virgo has a lot, it wants to clean up, it wants to organize, right? And this is kind of what we're being asked to do in our psyche. And as a feminine sign, we're being asked to clean up the feminine as far as being able to integrate. And that's what the astrology is speaking to us about, because almost the whole month of August, we have had the Sun and Venus together. And it's really fascinating what happens as we move into this new moon, because Mars and Venus come together. So it's like Mars and Venus took those really intense retrogrades last year. Mars was like July and August. We were feeling it. And the Venus retrograde was like September through December, and it was just like, whoa. And so we haven't really put ourselves back together from that, right? Like we haven't integrated that. And now is the time to do that, because Venus and Mars at the same time catching up to the Sun. And so Venus and the Sun have been talking for a very long time. They're staying very close, moving into Virgo together, being like, how do I clean up the feminine within? How do I release this shame that doesn't make any sense, but it's programmed within me? It makes me feel small, insignificant, not worthy. And it's programming, and it's in there, and it's informing my daily activities, but I can't quite figure out why it's there and how to get rid of it, right? And this is the type of thing that's going on right now as we attempt to integrate the disenfranchised parts of ourselves, And this is what's happened. As the indigo lightworker soul is this kind of a definition of the soul, because they've gone through so many lifetimes and experiences before they even came to Earth evolution, and very advanced souls, and therefore targeted, and has been, with persecution over lifetimes. And so those traumas that the soul may have experienced can lead to the need for like a soul retrieval, like you're not whole and complete because part of you is stuck in another time dimensional frequency, with unprocessed grief or whatever from what happened there, and trauma and anxiety. And we have a astral body, which is our emotional body, and it stores pictures and images and records, and we actually have an astral body for all of our lifetimes. And so we've had this like buildup of really intense energies, with these timelines all coming together. And it's like now we gotta maybe we've been going to these intense places because we're trying to retrieve these parts of ourselves, right? And the universe now is saying integrate. And maybe there's a message there, it definitely resonates, of like maybe we're preparing for the next go round of intensity. And we'll talk about that as we move out of this new moon energy. But it's kind of like get your stuff in order, right? Get your life in order. Get rid of all this garbage and all this stuff from the closets that's been weighing you down and you didn't know. It's almost like we didn't know before this last stretch of astrology what was really ours and what we were just carrying around that no longer serves us, right? And now it's a little more clear that Mercury's, out of retrograde, moving into new territory. And so we've got to integrate and clean up and sort through. And so that Sun and Venus integrating, so the Sun is our personality, right? Who we think we are, identity. And so we're like integrating this feminine part of ourselves and becoming more whole and complete. And then when the Sun and Venus are still close, Venus and Mars come into a conjunction, and that's going to lead us right up to this new moon energy, like literally the Virgin new moon in Virgo, leading us into a union of the most divergent and cast aside and separated parts of ourselves, right? So when we've experienced as a soul traumatic things, we get compartmentalized, right? It's kind of like what happens if you are, say, in this lifetime, a victim of mind control, and that's always trauma-based, and so there's a trauma component, and the end result in the psychological state is like a multiple personality, because the person has to become kind of separate from the trauma, disassociate, in order to survive. It's a survival mechanism. And so we're all kind of putting together our personalities and cleaning out what's not serving us from all these other lifetimes. And probably it can feel pretty schizophrenic for some people, but right now we're getting some support and some harmonizing and some confirmation of the process we're going through, and really important time to take this time to clean up, ground out, and be ready for the next chapter. So right before this full moon on the 25th and 26th, Venus and Mars are exactly conjunct. And then Venus, so the Sun and Venus are coming along and they hit, Mars. And then the Sun and Mars take off, and come out, or Venus goes ahead of them, and the Sun and Mars hang out together. And so it's a very interesting dance here going on. And the Sun and Mars will be close in conjunction also. So really it's this Venus, Mars, and the Sun all together for this new moon in Virgo. And it's about integrating our identities. And, this is a huge issue in the world right now. We're really caught up in identity. And there's a lot of this whole narrative of hate and how to be proactive, but then going too far the other way to try to, eliminate discrimination. And it's all just a really convoluted story, because when you start to read past lives and you really live in the reality that this is just one piece of a bigger puzzle, then you can see, that we've all incarnated as men and women, and we've all incarnated as different nationalities, and so it kind of is silly to maintain this delusion of hatred when you come in, have that realization, and this is kind of a game that keeps us divided, right? Divide and conquer. And as long as we're divided, we won't go up against those control energies and stand up against those, right? So everything is trying to keep us in this hatred and judgment of the other person. And this is an intense energy, but really, when you look at it, all hatred and all judgment is self-hatred and self-judgment. You cannot hate another person if you don't hate yourself. That part of yourself is reflecting. We're all one, we're all facets of one organism, and so this is all about a division within that oneness, the illusion of separation. And this Virgo new moon is trying to support us in healing these divisions within, with that Sun and Venus coming up with Mars, and Venus goes on and Mars and the Sun hang out. Now Mars and the Sun are going to be together until almost the middle of September. And so we have 3 weeks of Venus and the Sun, and 2 weeks of Mars and the Sun. And so it's like we're in council here. And especially because Venus stays so close to all of them right around this new moon. And it's like a council, and it's a meeting of the minds. And the topic is like, how do we get to oneness? Okay, and when you are interested in moving into heart-centered consciousness, into oneness consciousness, there is a necessary step of balancing the female energies and the male energies within us. We all have them within us. And so this is this time of integration, but it's about coming into the heart. Because when you take the brain out of the body, it falls into 2 pieces. And this is a representation of the duality consciousness that we live in. And yet we have more powerful conscious cells in our heart, and the heart is an organ of oneness. And so in order to come from that place of the heart and find that peace in life in this time and start to create the life you want, because that comes out of the energy of the heart, we have to balance and heal the male and female within, you know. And this is what the astrology is trying to support us in doing. And it looks like the Virgin, you know, is overseeing this opportunity for us to heal the bad divorce between these divergent parts of ourselves, heal the multiple split personalities from all of, you know, trying to integrate our personalities from all these lifetimes, and come back to a sacred marriage within, where your male and female are not at odds and they're not arguing, and you are able to connect in with this oneness, which is also in alignment with a one voice, where we stop arguing with ourselves and we can be clear about what we want in this individuality in this lifetime and what our higher self wants, and get into alignment and just move forward. Everything this year is about how do we get back to that life of meaning? How do we get back to the quest? And apparently, you know, healing the divergent parts of ourselves is very necessary for us to get back on the quest. So that's what's coming up after the new moon. We're going to be feeling it actually on the day of the, you know, pretty much right on the day of this new moon. We're going to start feeling all of these personal planets that have moved into Virgo come into square with Jupiter and then oppose Neptune. Really intense, because this whole year has been about how do we, Jupiter home in Sagittarius, how do we get back to this life of meaning, to this life of purpose? We have been so far away for so long, lifetimes of grief around having to give up what you really care about, your mission, your purpose, in order to survive in this crazy earth realm, right? And so now the planets are going to be doing this dance for 2 weeks of the first half of September. And so that's going to be first Venus squaring Jupiter, opposing Neptune, then Mercury, then the Sun, then Mars. And then after all that happens later in September, right at the equinox, where that Jupiter-Neptune square is going to come back into play, this exact. And so it's like the planets are like bopping around. These personal planets move fast, and it's like a very dynamic energy. Something's trying to play out, you know. So this is going to be starting with this new moon in Virgo, and it's kind of an intense dynamic energy, because it's showing us it's a mutable T-square, and every single planet is making this T-square one after the other. And so it's like, okay, Venus, what do you think about this? What do you know, what needs to be adjusted, you know, in the feminine, and then the masculine, and our mind and our identity are all getting rattled in their cage and shown what delusions and beliefs are keeping you from that life of meaning and purpose. And maybe there's secrets, you know, maybe there's the false beliefs, the programming, you know, it's all going to be revealed. And so it's like a bam, 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 all of these lights going on. But, you know, it's really important, because we've had a little bit of a breather here of the intense astrology, but we're heading back into it after this new moon. But it's just really important to keep in mind that Jupiter's only in Sagittarius for a couple more months, and it's heading into the galactic center. That will happen in a conjunction with the galactic center in November, and then in December it's out of there. It's into Capricorn in that 2020 astrology. And so we've got to like use this time to figure out and support ourselves and get the messages, get on the path, right? To feel that alignment with our true path, our true purpose. This is what solves everything in life, right? And it's so hard because so many of us are just trying to get through life, you know, trying to survive. And that's kind of how the control energies want it. They don't want us to have these extra energy to, you know, awaken spiritually and be really creative and, you know, be in that energy of expanding with the universe. But that's our natural state. And so these souls that are very advanced but have been held back so much are about to break free. It's like a rubber band, right? It's like okay, and you pull back and then shut out. And that Jupiter coming into conjunction with that galactic center, this is a point of destiny, right? And it's kind of, wow, there's a lot of energy here because I'm seeing all of these, the geometry, the timelines coming together around that time, and this kind of lining up of the collective destiny and our personal destinies, and timelines getting all rearranged, So I think this is what we're being prepared for. But we got to make the most of this time so we can move into 2020 empowered and whole and knowing what we want and knowing what makes us feel like life's worth living. And when you're on your path and feeling like you're doing what you're here to do and expressing your gifts and skills, then that is the juice. That's the juice of life. That keeps you hooked up to creative energy. It's so much. It's like it balances your emotions. It keeps you focused. It helps you feel happier and better in your relationships, right? Because we always want to blame other people subconsciously for our dissatisfaction, and this is like, take responsibility for that shit and make your life. Start living your truth. And that's what this is all about. So we need to take this opportunity of this little break, this breather, this new moon in Virgo, put ourselves back together and get ready for the next journey. And so I hope you can join me for a new moon in Virgo activation, live activation. This is going to be at 10 a.m. Mountain time on the 28th, the day before the new moon. And the 29th. The new moon's on the 30th. This is going to be on the 29th, Thursday the 29th at 10 a.m. Mountain time. And that's 9 o'clock a.m. on the West Coast and noon on the East Coast. So this activation is going to be a guided meditation, and we'll see what comes up, right? We don't know, but there's definitely a rebirth, integration, timeline, soul retrieval type stuff trying to happen. So that should be a really beautiful journey. I hope you can join me for that, and I will see you there or on the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.